track at the wall. We are tied. Look at this. He's slammed it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Dropping a big leg. Over for the cover. He got it. Unbelievable. High fly ball into right field. She is gone. Austin, he got it. The starter. Mike Tyson in. Austin is the champion. Stone Cold. Stone Cold. Stone Cold. Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left field line. Way back in. Touch them all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life. Oh my God, no! Mankind did it! Nick Foley did it! No! Stone Cold did it! Mankind has achieved his dream and the dream of everyone else who's been told you can't do it! No! You can't do it! You can't do it! No matter what, got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up.
Here we go. Pest may be long gone in the 1999, 2000, 2001 seasons, but he lives on in spirit with us on WWE WAR. This is episode 50, Marcus. I am JT, and we're excited to be here as always on the nerdiest podcast that exists on the North-South Connection, possibly beyond. We are here on audio and video as well. Videos on YouTube by searching North-South Connection, audio on any podcast application as well. You can listen in to our show, which we're going to explain in a minute. But Marcus, how you doing besides looking buff and handsome as always?
Oh, come on now. I'm good. Much like our 2023 New York Yankees, this season of 2018-2019 WWE WAR is stumbling out of the gates. So let's see if they can pull it together. I don't think so. But we'll talk about it, man. Looking forward to it. And you look great yourself.
Thanks, bud. Yeah, we kicked off this disaster of a season last episode with the worst, or now bottom show of all time, Greatest Royal Rumble 2018. It is the 18-19 season. We do things in a season format here. We kind of mimic the baseball theme. So we start with a pay-per-view following WrestleMania, and we end with WrestleMania the following calendar year. So we go through that whole season, then we jump around to different seasons as we go. You all right?
I'm good. Just bashful over here.
A little banter. So anyway, what we do is we watch every single pay-per-view in history in that seasonal format. We rank them on a bunch of categories that is based on a plus-minus system. So if you think of everything as replacement level, like in baseball, the most average player's replacement level, in wrestling, an average match, average commentary, what you'd expect an average crowd reaction to be. If you think of that as a 0, we go plus minus 1 on each end of those for things that are above replacement level or below replacement level. We also grade every match. We take our average match grade. We plus minus that from 2.5, which is your replacement level match score. We total all that up. That gives us our total WAR score, and we rank every single show accordingly. Like I mentioned, Greatest Royal Rumble, for example, finished with a negative 17.25, which is by far
like worst Royal Rumble. Am I right?
The worst of the 94 events we have covered so far. And our number one is Royal Rumble 2002 at 44. So that shows you the spread we have between our best and our worst. I'd say our average middle-ish is like around 18, 19, 20. It's kind of in there. That's like where the good, I would say the good line is. The really true average is more like in the low to mid teens. Once you get below that, it's kind of a forgettable show. Marcus, you want to go over the categories that we rank in?
Absolutely, will do. We start off with build, followed up by commentary, the atmosphere of the event, notable moments and importance, our match grades like you talked about, card structure, rewatchability, and all-time matches. And in order for an all-time match to be a plus, it is anything we both agree is 4.25 and above. For it to be a minus, it is anything we both agree is 0.75 and below.
All right. Like we mentioned, we are going through the 2018-19 season, and we are currently on the third premium live event network special pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, that time period. Money in the Bank 2018 took place on June 17th from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, of course. A very popular WWE mainstay from the beginning of their pay-per-view days. On commentary, we have Michael Cole and Jonathan Coachman on Raw, Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton for SmackDown, and Corey Graves with both, because he has on both shows during this stretch. We did have a pre-show match, and that was the Bludgeon Brothers, Harper and Rowan, defeating Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. They were still around at this point. I feel like we haven't seen them at all on any of the stuff, but apparently they're still around. That was a 7-minute match on the pre-show. So why don't we go ahead and dive right into the actual card? We'll go through the matches quickly, and then we'll get into our categories. Our opening match was Daniel Bryan taking on Big Cass. That was a rematch from Backlash, which we were okay on. That had the weird ending too. But this was a rematch. Bryan goes over again, and hopefully maybe puts an end to this. I think 2 matches is more than enough through all this. He ends up tapping him out with a heel hook submission. I liked this better. Like, for instance, for Backlash, I went 275. For this one, I went 325. So I actually thought they improved a decent amount. I'll put part of that on Bryan for maybe getting some rust off and starting to get back into ring shape. I think Cass knew his role a little bit better. We also hated the post-match at Backlash with the attack and kind of made Bryan look stupid. I think this felt like, okay, maybe we're, a little bit more into moving on finally.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a Big Cass truther. I love that he was included in the 4 or 5 way on Raw when the Universal title was vacant. And what was it, 2015? Somewhere around there. But this is a long ways away from that. And I love Big Bill now, but right here, this is a little bit pulling teeth. I went to 3. And for a Bryan match to be a 3, I think I went a 2.5 on their last encounter. So definitely ready to move on. And we will move on to our next match as we have my main man, Bobby Lashley, taking on Sami Zayn. I went to 2.25. Bob Lash just not clicking yet. And Zayn is it just feels
is this
like
his worst year ever? It's gonna be up there, right?
He feels like he's just swimming up against the stream. This isn't not his best work, and I feel like it's the material he has to work with because clearly he's a top worker in the company.
Yeah, well, this whole run, the whole Shane Owen stuff, started his 18 off in a real bad place, and he just hasn't recovered yet at all. I don't think he really bounces back until the pandemic era. I'm shaking on this run overall, but that's my memory of it. Lashley does not seem to know what he wants to be at all. So this match to me does not get into the right gear. I went 2 stars. I was pretty disappointed in it, honestly. Up next was an Intercontinental title match with Seth Rollins defeating Elias. He walked with Elias into a pretty good match. They get a lot of time. It goes 17 minutes. And this really, to me, felt like, a lot of the word was oh, well, Elias is a fun character, can't really work. What's he going to do? And they were all right, go show yourself. And he went out there 17 minutes with Rollins. I went 3. So again, it wasn't great, but I thought it exceeded what you would expect Elias to output in a 17-minute match. The crowd was pretty invested. It started slow, but I thought the back end really picked up. So I think this could have popped actually. Ironically enough, if it was shorter, if they go 10 minutes maybe, and just went through more of a sprint on that back end instead of trying to drag it to the 17. But we're in full on, as we'll see, Seth Rollins work rate IC guy stretch right now. So we're going to get a lot of long Rollins work rate IC title defenses.
Yeah, he's just getting warmed up at the 15-minute mark, like old Hammer Valentine. I went 3 1/4, just off the strength of like the finishing sequence. Rollins is really good at this point with like the elongated finishing sequences and really gets the crowd into it. And it's really cool to see Elias have a chance to go out there and work. Not like he's a character who has to do that a ton, but it was cool to kind of see him get a big spotlight and come through in that moment.
Yep.
Up next, we have a Money in the Bank ladder match, and it is for a contract for a women's championship. As we have, we got Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Naomi, Natalia, Alexa Bliss, Sasha Banks, Ember Moon, and Lana all competing. Alexa Bliss is going to pull down the briefcase, and I went with a 3 for this match. Feels like on the lower end of Money in the Bank matches, but definitely not bad either, but not, I think, what you're hoping for when you have one of these matches.
Lana #1. That was during this time, right? Fucking thing.
Yes.
3 1/4 for me. I agree with you. It's kind of just on like the, I have my baseline Rumble grade, kind of your baseline Money in the Bank grade. It's like no matter, unless it's a real mess, like most Money in the Banks are probably going to be at least 3 stars. We're in a weird little spot with the division right now. Like Charlotte and Sasha kind of already feel, I don't want to say stale, but they've been around 2 years. Like they've kind of been dominating the division. Ember's kind of climbing up. Alexa is in this weird place because she had the feud with Nia Jax and all that going on. Naomi and Lana are kind of filler at this point. Natalia is definitely filler at this point. And Becky is like on the doorstep, but hasn't hit that breakthrough yet that she's going to in a couple months. So, I'd say going into it, Charlotte, Sasha, and Alexa are probably the favorites. So they go with Little Miss Bliss. We'll see where this goes now, if she continues to feud with Nia at all or continues to move along. But so 3 1/4 from me. Up next was maybe the most random Roman Reigns match on pay-per-view. Roman Reigns versus Jinder Mahal. This was I love the big dog. Maybe not as much as you and the Tool Man, but I love the big dog. But this was no bueno. This is 16 minutes. It is long. I'm one of those guys that like wants to be like, oh, Jinder, but when I watch him back, I'm like, no, it just is. He's just boring. Like I think he's a guy, like maybe just a better kind of a heat guy, talker, not meant for 16-minute like punch kick matches with Roman Reigns. You know what I mean? Like this is not what he should be doing, especially in 2018. So, and this is like the bottom. I would say we're about to. I mean, obviously, the cancer is going to be the real bottom for poor Roman Reigns, but we're near the bottom of his like,
aimless booking.
The crowd shitting on him. They can't get him over. It's been a slow decline since 2016, 15, 16, and this is like rock bottom. When he comes back from the blood cancer and into the pandemic era is when he, starts to make the climb to be the upper echelon that he's become now since. But we're kind of in the final days of the Reigns failed big face dog experiment.
Yeah, 2 and 2 1/4 for me. I like both of these guys, but this was way longer than anything I needed to see. I would have been perfectly content with like a hot 8 minutes, especially with how the feud started, with Jinder took costing Roman a spot in the ladder match. So thought it should have been a more hotly contested contest. 15 minutes was a tall task.
Oh, God.
Next up, we've got Asuka taking on Carmella for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and Carmella is going to pick up the win there. I went with a 2.75, and I've really liked seeing Carmella continue to develop into her character at this point. There's definitely been some growing pains when it comes to like crowd interaction and stuff like that, but I think you can see the steady progress month to month, or at least show to show.
Yeah, I went 2.5. I'd agree that there's been some growth there. She's pretty much a classic chicken shit heel, which I think is fine because the women's division is kind of filled with badass alphas, right? And Charlotte and Becky and Sasha and Asuka, like they're all Ember Moon, like they're all badasses. So we don't really have like that honky tonk man type of champion, and Carmella's embraced it. I was wondering watching this, like, okay, how are they gonna have her beat Asuka here? And the way they go about it's fine. So someone comes out dressed in the full Asuka mask and gear. Turns out to be Jimmy Dream. James Ellsworth makes his return, and Asuka ends up eating it after she's like shocked. The only thing I didn't like was I did feel it made Asuka look dumb, being so frozen in fear by someone in her gear. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe it should have moved a little bit quicker than it did. It just made her feel a little silly. Anyway, again, the match was fine. Asuka's so good, and Carmella's improving. Up next, yes, there's a million effing matches on the show, of course, because this is the bloated WWE Network pay-per-view era.
Every show is WrestleMania.
Every show's bloated. AJ Styles yet again taking on Shinsuke Nakamura for the WWE title. This is what their third now, I believe, match, and also their final.
3 for 3.
Yeah, the final of the series. So this is one where we finally get an actual finish.
That's good. And
Nakamura, it's a last man standing. Styles ends up putting him with a phenomenal forearm through the broadcast table, and Nakamura couldn't stand up for 10. This I felt like was in line, I guess a little bit better than most other stuff. Like I went 3 3/4. That's in line with Backlash for me. And I lied, it's a fourth match because we didn't do Mania. So it was Mania, Greatest Royal Rumble, Backlash, Money in the Bank. They had 4. I did not like the Rumble match as much. Mania, I haven't watched it forever, but I have this at least equal Backlash at 3 3/4 and match of the night.
3 1/4 for me. I never want to see any match with these two guys again in WWE. The action picked up once they got past like the, I don't know, like 12, 15-minute mark. I'm not even sure, but like at this point, why you've had 3 matches, your 4th match in a row, not including the stuff on TV that we haven't been tracking either. Why are we still having these elongated matches? Like just hit it and go, especially with 20 matches on a show.
Well, it wouldn't be 20 matches. Oh, well, it would, but it wouldn't be as long if we just cut some of this stuff down. Like as we'll go through this season, I'm shocked because I figured the bloated cards would be filled with video packages, commercials, network stuff, bullshit segments. It's not. It's just long matches, like, which surprised me. And you would think that's like the dream. Like, oh yeah, 4-hour pay-per-view. They got all these great workers, long matches. I don't get what it is about 2018 that like none of it just clicks. They give them all plenty of time to tell stories. They get everyone on the card every month. Like it's kind of what you always wanted. And none of it just hits for whatever reason.
Yep. Yeah, they're like making the most of having their own network finally, with like giving everybody that they can opportunity on these big stages to get some run. But I feel like all the packages and all the promos, not even like actual like wrestling promos, but commercials and everything like that, like that's all Peacock. I think that's when that really changed over, but I guess we'll see.
I think early on they did some too. Like when the network first started, there was a lot of like, oh, why do we have commercials and this and that. But yeah, I think it amped up with Peacock. But
yeah, I think now you're like a solid 15 minutes from end of the bell to beginning of the next bell. Yeah, they got it pretty timed out. We're not done yet. We have another title match, and it is Ronda Rousey taking on Nia Jax for the Raw Women's Championship. And I went with a 3.5. Really liked what they did. And of course, this is going to bleed into Alexa Bliss cashing in her Money in the Bank. Recently won about an hour and a half ago, and she's going to successfully cash in on her, I guess, friend turned rival, Nia Jax. And I went 2.5 with the cash in. Thought it was pretty standard.
Yeah, no, me as well. I went 3.5 on the match. It was surprising. I think it's one of those ones that has a little bit of legend behind it. Like, oh, that Rousey Nia Jax match, right? Everyone kind of knows it and remembers it being kind of surprising because you might like Nia as a character or as being kind of the bully of the women's division, but I don't think anyone expected her to have much of a kind of a match like to this level with Rousey. So yeah, Rousey basically had her be Alexa comes out and causes the DQ, so Nia retains. Rousey doesn't win the belt. So I like the way they went about that. So Rousey's not taking a loss on either one of these. And then yes, Alexa pins her frenemy, right, former friend, to win the belt. So I was the same as you in 3.5, 2.5. It was a good moment. Are you a fan of the same night cash-ins?
No. No, Nope, overdone. I think I looked at it with producer Tim, and they're especially bad with the women doing like same night, same week cash-ins. Like I think Io was the second longest reigning Money in the Bank holder behind Carmella.
Right.
I'm not. I think pulling down the briefcase is a cool enough moment, and like
Mhm.
okay, the company's getting behind this person. I think that's cool enough. I don't think you need to cash in on the same night, but that's just me. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, and since there's two now, I feel a little less hamstrung about it. When it's the only one, and they did it a couple times, like, or at least once when Ray did it, or when Kane did it on Ray, was that the only one, or were there two already at that point? There
I
might have been two already at that
That
point.
was two. Yeah, they
Yeah.
had the red one and the blue one.
All right. So since they have
Um,
two, like, I'm okay with it because you still get one as the gimmick to run for a while, and then you burn one off that night and make it special. Um, I think Bailey's is probably the best one, right? As far as same night, didn't she cash in the same night?
she did. She did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crowd really erupted for that. I thought that
I
was
was there at that
interesting.
show. Sorry, but it stands out
Okay.
to me. It was like, yeah, they went nuts when she won. So I'd say that's probably one of the more well done ones. So this one was fine. Like, I think Alexa could have been good carrying the briefcase, but I think from a kayfabe standpoint, Nia is probably never going to be more beaten down than she was going toe to toe with Ronda. So why not shoot your shot? You know.
Yeah, and they also had a stretch where like the season before this, Alexa Bliss was SmackDown's Women's Champion for a really long time, and she goes over to Raw and she wins the title. And so I think like this little bit of time where she's not a champion is like the
Mhm.
longest period of time she'd not been champion in like 2 years.
Yep.
So it kind of felt like they needed to have a title on her for whatever reason.
Right. Well, and I mean, Nia as champion's fine, but I think where you would assume they're going is to Ronda winning the belt, right? So, like, to me, Ronda dethroning Alexa is going to be more satisfying than her beating Nia for the belt. So I think maybe that's part of it too, right? Kind of have her knock off Alexa, who's been like the dominant person in the division, have Ronda be the one to end her. So all right, that brings us to our main event. It's Money in the Bank. Braun Strowman wins the Money in the Bank contract, defeating Bobby Roode, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Kofi Kingston, Rusev, Samoa Joe, and The Miz. A very eclectic mix of talent in this one. If you would have asked me a month ago, was Bobby Roode ever in a Money in the Bank match, I would have said no way. But here we are. After the Bury Me Softly incident with Rusev, apparently he gave him a little love, put him in the Money in the Bank. This goes 20 minutes, second longest match on the night. But again, a pretty just perfunctory Money in the Bank. I went 3. I actually had a little bit worse than the women's. I didn't find it to be anything special. This is a big year for Braun, and I'm just not a big Braun guy, so I struggle through a lot of this stuff that we're going to see with him as we go forward. But him being like the top dog, just I get it. He got himself in great shape. He got himself over. The crowd's into him, but maybe it's hindsight for me that I struggle with him as like the guy. I kind of get aggravated every time I see him come out.
Ryback 2.0, I feel like they were late with him. I think 2017 was the time to run with him. By the time we get to 2018, it's already lesser than 2017. Not that the crowd's not into him. I wasn't super into this match either. I also went with a 3. I just remember seeing the match structure coming from a mile away, and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, with the story of keeping Braun away from the ring, and then like Braun advances and he wrecks shop a little bit, and then the numbers game get to him, and then they put him down for a little bit, and then he gets up, advances. They do the same thing a couple times. So it's a different story than what they had done with Money in the Bank before, because usually it's just kind of car crash and whoever gets to it gets to it. So they actually had a story within the match. So I think that's
Yep.
why I pulled it up to a 3 for me, because I was not looking forward to this match, but it over delivered from what I remembered.
All right. So for match grades, if you take our average and then plus minus that from that 2.5, gives us a total WAR score for matches on the night of 4.25, which I would say is very good. I would call that very good. Like the great, like the all-time classics are like 7, 8, 9. The great is in like 5, 6. I would say 3, 4 is like very good, and then
Mhm.
2 and below is kind of like fine to trash once you get to like
Yeah,
the zeros to ones. But
it's almost double better than anything we've seen this season so far.
yeah, for example, Greatest Royal Rumble was a 0.75, right? That's our worst
Mhm.
show ever. So that's where that's at. So pretty good in ring, not great, but very good. All right, let's get to our categories. So for build, we gave a point for Rollins being the workhorse, IC champ on Raw, and then defending the title against all challengers. A point for the jealous Jinder costing Reigns his Money in the Bank chance. That's why that match happened. Was Jinder attacked him, cost him the match, the qualifying match, ended up beating him down with a chair. So now Reigns won revenge.
Don't hinder
the Jinder. Asuka, a point for her stepping up to be the one to end Carmella's run. A point for the Nakamura Styles war continuing on to a finale, rolling on since February. A point for Nia challenging Rousey, showing that she's too strong for the armbar. That was all through the build that Ronda couldn't put the armbar on her because she was too big. New and different talent doing well with their opportunities. Rusev getting shine on SmackDown, being in the Money in the Bank. So pretty good builds for the show on the positive side.
Let's get into the minus side of things. We got Bryan and Cass being dragged out despite Bryan picking up the clean win at the last pay-per-view. We've got a weird build for Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley, where like there's the obstacle course segment, and there's also like Twitter beefs, and I think this is where Zayn brings out like Lashley's family.
Yeah.
And there was like that was kind of a controversial segment.
Well, they were like leaning in on Lashley being like his MMA stuff, but basically being like his army background, that he could do these obstacle courses and like all this stuff. They were basically building him as like the super athlete, Bobby Lashley or whatever. But we'll get there. We'll get there with him, just not quite yet.
Yeah. No real rivalries or personal issues woven into the women's Money in the Bank, just kind of like a collection of talent and going for the briefcase. We've got Constable Corbin here as Steph's avatar. Last man standing for Styles and Nakamura. Didn't make a ton of sense, I thought, since both guys couldn't get up. Same thing could happen.
Right. Yeah, the whole story, right? They had the double knockout, the double,
they have like a double
nut shot, and all that, and now they're doing the same thing. Like,
so
if they're both knocked out, they can't get up. Both go get up, then
right. You can have a draw. So why not pick a different match type where there has to be a winner?
Yeah, it was a little weird. I know you're a Corbin guy. I hate Constable Corbin. I hate the stupid outfit. We're at the very final days of the authority figure for the sake of an authority figure era. Started all well-intentioned back in Mr. McMahon and sleazy days, and just kind of kept rippling from there to the point where we have like layers of authority figures on TV. We talked about this in previous seasons about being obsessed with the corporate structure and who's the face in the brand, like we talked about in 15, 16, and it's like still here. Like Steph is the president, Corbin's the constable, Shane's the GM. We have like Paige on the show. Like we got like 4 or 5 different authority figures all through these shows. It's like, who gives a shit? Like, why do we need all this? So, when Baron Corbin is like a constable under like it's too much.
Yeah.
Officially too much.
I liked what they were going for if you're going to actually keep Shane and Steph off TV and only bring them in for like special occasions. Kind of like how you have a team owner and a team general manager. You might know the GM, but the owner might be seen a little bit less. So I thought that was like something cool they were implementing, but then it just went right back to get the McMahons on television.
Yep. All right. So that's a net out of a 1 for build. So about even, but balanced out. Commentary, we give a point for a really good job in the opener. I thought they told a nice story throughout the match of Bryan and Cass, surprisingly enough. A good job of Becky and the Money in the Bank journey. So the big story through the match, like you mentioned, was that she was a runner-up the year before. She was obsessed with winning this year, and again, loses at the last second as being the runner-up this year. She almost had the briefcase, gets taken out. So I thought they did a nice job throughout the match. Really funny moment, a rare one from Byron Saxton. It's not just like a video game soundbite. Corey Graves had like a black and white and gray monotone suit, and Byron calls him NWO Corey, which was pretty funny. I thought pretty funny reference. Worth a little shout from Byron because he's really funny.
We're all getting to the minuses. We've got the fake sportscaster jokey jokes all night. We went -2 to summarize all that. Soundbite Byron, of course, strikes all night. Back to that. Cole yelling at Coach as he tries to explain that a bear hug is a rest for Ronda, and like Corey Graves and Cole, they like ask how he's still employed. Comes off as really like mean spirited instead of like fun.
It doesn't come off like Gorilla and Bobby. Yeah, it doesn't go, or Jesse and Vince. It's like mean. It's like why the fuck are you even here? Basically, it's like, how did you even get this job, coach? You're so
it's
terrible
like,
and stupid.
It's like they don't want him there at all, and they'd rather just be the two of them. We've got Cole, Graves, and Coach arguing, bickering, one-upping each other all night. With Coach trying to be the only person to like provide insight. So yeah, just tough to listen to, and that all grades out to a -2.
About what you would expect for commentary in this era. I mean, God bless Coach. Like, I think he just came in with that ESPN mentality, like he tried during this time to really make it feel legit, like a sport presentation. Like that's, I think, what he tried to introduce. And then you got, Coles and full on yuck, and Graves is then trying to be, the Bobby doppelganger. That's just not clicking yet. So he's trying to, in the airport because I can't, like that kind of shtick, right? So it's just not meshing. They're all doing different gimmicks, basically. All right, we're in Chicago, so atmosphere is a big one. We give a point for the opening shot of the upper Bowling roof. Just it's Rosemont right away. It has that classic look. Brings you right back to, old WWF classic cards here. A point for the big pop for Daniel Bryan. A pop for Elias gets a point. We give a point for Naomi's Dayglow entrance. Always hits. A point for the great engagement in the women's Money in the Bank match. The crowd was very into it, especially the Becky piece. A point for Jinder's banger entrance. He's got Sunil's injured, trying to introduce him. If you could just take Jinder's entrance and then just have him leave, would be awesome. A point for Asuka's entrance. A point for Nakamura's entrance was great. A point for the crowd being mega hot for Alexis Cash-In. They were, we talked about it being that night, but that crowd is usually into those moments because you're going to see something extra special. A point for Rusev Day, which is very over during this. Aiden English's intro. And then a point for Glorious, which always, of course, is worth a point. It's a wonderful entrance.
Yeah, big entrance era coming off the heels of NXT being super popular. For our minuses for atmosphere, we have Lashley's generic and lame theme, and he gets like a soft pop.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's almost secondhand embarrassment. They really need to get him going. Hopefully they'll turn up the heat on him as the season goes. And then we've got the usual Roman Reigns booing, even against a true heel like Jinder Mahal.
All right, so that's a +9 on atmosphere, which, again, Chicago's always going to carry these. Like, they always bring the heat, bring the crowd interaction, bring the moments. Speaking of moments, let's hit that. An excellent Elias pre-match ritual promo. He was really good, and he just shows this character works well. He can blend the character work. It's a high-stakes match. He could be a top-level guy. He worked a long, pure match. Like, he can go. You're coming out of the show thinking like this dude's like a future stud easily when you watch this. Like he's like, okay, yeah, we only went 3 1/4, but it's like that far exceeds what you would expect out of him. And he's doing it with promo work that's super over before the match as well. So we actually give 2 because it meant so much to Elias and the potential position on the card. A point for Alexa winning Money in the Bank. A point for Jimmy Dream coming back to help Melo win. We went 3 points to the Rousey trifecta. It's our first singles match. It's our first title match. It's our first pay-per-view match as a singles star. So, like, this is a big night for Ronda Rousey, who's going to be your showcase star over the next year in the women's division. So, a big night for her. A point for Alexa cashing in on Money in the Bank and winning the title. And then a point for Strowman winning Money in the Bank.
We only have 1 minus here, and that is Asuka. Looking kind of dumb with the finish there, just kind of like staring and being confused by somebody being in gear. Yeah, she was put in a tough position to try to sell that.
It would have been funny if they had Ellsworth like with the mask try and do the mist, and he like sprays himself under the mask, and like Asuka's like, "What's going on?" And then they like have him do something instead of just stand there. You know what I mean? Like, or introduce it before the match and say like, maybe like there's been someone cosplaying as Asuka all through the arenas every week on Raw, and like, or SmackDown, wherever Trish is on, and like, kind of driving her nuts. Like, she'd look in the crowd, there's an Asuka mask out there, there's another one in the locker room, like, and then maybe she's paranoid about it, right? Versus just like in the moment, it's kind of like, all right, like, what are we doing?
Yeah, or have them take the mist.
That too, yeah.
At least you get something.
All right, so that's a big night of moments, which is not big, not often for this era. This era is not known for its moments. So that's a +8. We went +425 on match grades, like we talked about. For card structure, we get a match for starting hot with Daniel Bryan. I'm sorry, a point for starting hot with Daniel Bryan. A point for the stipulation for knock Styles. Having the legal low blow finish at the end of the match was a nice touch. A point for every match getting time to tell the story. I mean, for better or worse, they did not shortchange this evening in the ring. They gave them plenty of time to work. A point for Rousey getting the semi-main. That was a big spot for her. And a point for the Money in the Bank cash-in. I mean, even though, if you're not a huge fan of it, it still like makes that night feel extra special, gets the crowd revved up, makes the gimmick pay off right away.
Yeah, it's definitely a plus to the show. For our minuses, the show is too long. It's driven by long matches that could have been tighter. I mean, how many times do we say take 5 minutes off this, take 7 minutes off this? 15-minute matches, 30-minute matches, 17-minute matches. We've got a waste of Reigns in a desperate attempt to keep him as a face against a miserable heel in Jinder Mahal. Again, way too long of a match that the crowd just hated. Ads, replays, resets from stuff that happened 30 minutes ago on a pay-per-view. You have a captive audience. You don't need to recap people. It's all just time wasting. The men's Money in the Bank is absurdly overstacked. Like you said, Bobby Roode was in that, and he wouldn't have, that's a trivia question pretty much. And it's still littered with slow climbs with as many guys are in there. It's all, the slow video game climb. So that was it for minuses in that section. And that grades us out to a
+1.
-1.
+1 for card structure.
Oh, sorry, +1.
Yep.
+1 there.
Which again is not bad. I mean, this is an era that we've been dinging pretty good on card structure because it's usually a mess. So stuff like that and build are netting out even, and then you get the two big categories. So it's actually shaping up to maybe an upset night here. Rewatchability, gave a point for, we didn't talk about this, but there's a segment about Kevin Owens and New Day arguing over Braun Strowman and pancakes and the finest Canadian maple syrup. So it was a pretty funny bit. A point for Ember hitting a springboard crossbody into Sasha on the ladder was a 6 spot. And a point for the Super Styles Clash off the steps to the floor and then the forearm into the table to finish Nakamura.
For our minuses here for rewatchability, we've got the women struggling, so obviously with unhooking the case, made them all look silly and lesser than. We've got the awkward Angle and Paige GM interactions. Paige here. Special Olympics package is a nice idea. Maybe do that on TV or the pre-show. And Mella's nonstop screaming and screeching. Again, it's more effort to her character work, but it's far from clicking.
It's annoying. So it's a -1 for rewatchability. I forgot about Angle too when we were naming all the fucking authority figures. Steph, Angle, Constable Corbin, Paige, Shane. Is there another one on SmackDown? There's probably some admin or some stupid that's in there too. We don't need 5 authority figures. And then 205 Live, I think Drake Maverick or whatever was.
Drake Maverick should be
205 Live GM. So it's and then NXT, right? Do they have an authority figure? Was Regal there? Probably.
Regal's in NXT.
I mean, we got 7 authority figures on TV right now, plus the overarching Vince that's always looming over everything. So it's we basically have and Triple H is still the COO.
Triple H.
I mean, we got 9 authority figure positions.
And the board of directors.
Right, the board of directors. Come on, we need 9 corporate structured members throughout this. It's absurd. It's
actual work. It is actual work.
Right, it's stupid. Who wants it? We talked about this endlessly in 15-16 season, but it's I don't watch wrestling to be remembered about corporate hierarchy and structure. It's I'm watching wrestling there's a reason, Marcus, that when I go to Barry night, I watch 1980s primetime wrestling, right? Because I'm not getting the corporate buzzwords and structure beaten into my fucking skull as I'm trying to fall asleep, right? I want to watch Iron Mike Sharp get his ass kicked by Coco Beware while Gorilla and Bobby make fun of each other. That's what I want to relax to.
For 27 minutes.
God's sakes. I don't want to hear about, Constable reports up through him, but he's a dotted line to Kurt Angle. I don't need to hear all this shit. -1 for rewatchability. Somehow this show finishes with 20.25.
A miracle.
Which I would say is a shock. Probably going to be one of the biggest shocks of the season. It ties it with TakeOver Phoenix and TakeOver UK Blackpool. I would assume it's last. Those 2 shows have to have a match higher than 3 3/4, I would think.
Got it. Yeah.
Let me look real quick. So TakeOver Phoenix. Let's see. The highest rated match on that was 4.5, which was War Raiders versus O'Reilly and Strong, and UK Blackpool. Quarters on Dunn versus Kofi. Coffee. So that would be 675. What was our highest here? 375. And what did you have for No,
I think
3.25.
3.25. Yeah.
So that's 7. So yeah, it's a little bit higher. So actually, this will be ahead of Blackpool.
Okay. Break up the NXT shows.
Yeah, below Phoenix though, for sure. So that puts it at number 35 all time out of 95. So, I mean, right around the third mark. I would say again I would say it's a pretty big upset. I would not have thought this was going to finish that high.
And I feel like with the Money in the Banks, since it's become a pay-per-view, they've done pretty well with delivering like good moments. Usually get a couple big matches. You get the quality of the ladder matches is usually really good. The atmosphere is usually off the charts. So I feel like all that kind of, much like a Royal Rumble, helps cook into the score a little bit. It might be a little bit of a system buster.
All right. So that said, let's go ahead and move on to our second pay-per-view of the evening, and we're going to move ahead 1 month on our timeline to... Hang on here. Sorry, next was technically an NXT. Extreme Rules 2018, July 15th from the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh. A lot of P's. We have Michael Cole, Jonathan Coachman again for Raw, Phillips and Saxton for SmackDown, Corey Graves doing all the matches. And I'll say this, Marcus, like a good referee, I think the fact that we never mentioned Tom Phillips' name speaks well for him. Like, he was just very good. Like, he did his job. I like him in that main role. Like, we had nothing negative to say about him, so he should just be doing all this by himself.
Yeah. He didn't crash a car.
No, did not. All right, we had 2 pre-show matches. Andrade Almas defeated Sin Cara in 7 minutes, and Sanity, remember them, Eric Young, Alexander Wolf, and Killian Dane defeated the New Day. Jesus, in a tables match, 8 minutes. It's crazy where New Day is at in 2018 like this. I mean, we're less than a year from the big Kofi push. I've been real curious to see where that starts. Like, because Brian doesn't really get into full heel Brian until the end of the year. It's like that Kofi thing, hot, fast, huh? It's like,
and we'll see, because I think that push was supposed to go to Mustafa Ali, allegedly.
Yeah.
And then he got injured, so Kofi Mania running wild out of nowhere.
All right. So that's our pre-show. Let's get to the actual card. Our opening match features the leaders of worlds, and that is, of course, Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. We haven't seen it in a minute since they won the Raw tag titles that were vacated. Taking on the B team, Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. Again, I cannot believe those guys were still around. And amazingly enough, the B team win clean, pinning Matt Hardy, who was deleted by Bo Dallas, to win the Raw tag titles. It was a cool moment. I liked it, honestly. It was not something I expected to happen. I guess it's leaders of world that were short-lived at this point. The Hardy thing was already kind of running its course. It didn't really capture the magic that they had in TNA. I went 2.75, which, if you told me beforehand this would be 2 3/4 and a cool moment with the BT winning the belts, I would not have believed it.
Yeah, absolutely none of the WWE Matt Hardy broken universe hits with me at all. So I'm glad to see that go away here. I went 2 3/4 as well. Best part of this match was the B team theme, Battle Scars. That's a dope theme song, and played plenty on this night. So our next match is Finn Balor taking on Constable Corbin. It's pretty straightforward, 2.5. Just a match.
2.5 for me. Listen, it's a completely forgettable match when even in Wikipedia it just says Finn Balor faced Constable Corbin. In the end, Balor pinned Corbin with a small package to win. Every other match has like a paragraph. That one has one line. It's as replacement level as it gets, and it's a waste of Balor. I'm sorry. Like, again, I love you, and I know you love Corbin, but it's not clicking for me with the Constable. And this is now we have Big Cass eating up Bryan matches. Now we have Corbin eating up Balor matches. Like, these dudes, let's get the most out of them while we can, right? They're not young. Let's use Bryan and Balor in some big time matches and not, with these goofs. 2.5, and he'll like it. All right, we have a rematch for the SmackDown Women's title. Asuka taking on Carmella again, and Carmella yet again honky tonk mans her way out of this. 2.25 stars. This is where Jimmy Dream is up in the cage. The referee gets distracted. Carmella shoves Asuka into the cage as it's getting lowered, and Asuka, and then retains the title. Asuka puts the Asuka lock on Ellsworth after the match. So Carmella using Ellsworth as her Jimmy Hart through this, which I always like. I like when you have the woman with the weak ass dude as like the backup. Kind of harkens back to the Victoria Stevie Richards stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
where he's just kind of the stooge for her. So he's using her well. She's using him well, and retains her belt yet again. So at some point you think Asuka will break through. We'll see. But for right now, short end of the stick.
2.5 for me. I thought the finish was executed well, and I enjoy Carmella in general during the season. I think she's a high point for me as far as her character goes. We have another Hardy in action next. It is for the United States title as Jeff Harvey is going to lose to Shinsuke Nakamura. I went 2.5, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the real quick one.
Yes, this is the low blow squash ostensibly. So
yeah.
he hits the low blow, then the bell rings. Hardy's okay, hits the Kinshasa, 6 seconds. After the match, Orton makes his big return, stares down Nakamura, and then beats the shit out of low blows Hardy as well, and leaves. So this is big heel turn upon his return to action after the injury, and his heel turn as well. So Nakamura, wins the U.S. title here, and he's another guy you always hear a lot of complaints about. Oh, they misuse him, this or that. But he just had 4 world title matches. His first month after it wins the U.S. title. Like, he's presented pretty strongly here in 2018, without a doubt. One of the top guys. So I went 2.5, just a squash grade, but I like the way it's executed. We have, again, like friggin' 20 matches on this goddamn card, it feels like. So having a couple be quick wasn't the worst thing.
No.
All right, 2.5 for me as well on Kevin Owens defeating Braun Strowman. I just can't get into this feud. Lashley, Owens, Zayn, Strowman. This is a steel cage match. Owens uses handcuffs. He choke slams Owens off the top of the cage to the announce table. And so it's a big time bump, but Owens hits the floor first, so he wins. He gets stretchered out. He's a mess. But this feud is like one that you think should be fun. Owens and Zayn being crazy and bumping and stooging for 2 powerhouses, but it's just not clicking at all. So the spot's memorable, but the match was not.
Yeah, 2.5 for me. And I was talking with a buddy of mine, and we just talked about how like there's been so many impressive spots over the years, and things that we talked about too, like the Salida del Sol off the ladder, into the ladder bridge, and like that was an incredible visual. This is another one. Like Owens gets tossed off the top of the cage. No leeway there. It's one way down, and he goes straight through the table. And it's an incredible sight, and it's an incredible bump. And I don't care if they had the air pad table or whatever. It was brutal. It was a big bump.
That said, though,
and
go ahead.
I don't think I've seen this bump outside of like the Monday Night Raw after the show.
I said it was memorable, and I was trying to see if you disagreed, because I don't even agree with it. It's not memorable at all. Owens killed himself. Until it happened, to your point, I had no memory of this even match happening or moment happening. This same spot, like, not even as big of a version with like Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Shawn fell halfway off the cell, is one of the most memorable moments in company history. This is a way bigger bump, and you never hear anything about it. And Owens is a featured guy, and Strowman's around. So it's one they could show, and you never hear anything about it. And it's like, this guy, died for us for no reason.
This is attempted murder.
Yeah.
And it's just on to the next match.
Yeah. Yeah. On with the next one. It's like,
yeah, well, we're going to get on with the next one as we have a reunited Team Hell No taking on the Bludgeon Brothers for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Bludgeon Brothers are going to pick up the win. Whole story here with Kane trying to get to the ring after being attacked backstage by the Bludgeon Brothers. I went 2 3/4. I'm usually pretty high on Harper's work. Brian is always Brian. And this was a pretty solid tag match with a good little story cooked in.
Yeah, I went 2.75 as well. I mean, the moment really is that Brian and Kane came back together for a little quick run for Hell No. But yeah, they beat up Kane before the match. Then he can't come out until the end, and it's basically a handicap match. Bludgeon Brothers have been pretty fun. Like, I liked them as a team during the stretch, so I'm fine with them retaining. But I keep coming back to the talking points that we went over in our last couple of shows. Like, Brian had this miraculous recovery. you may only have so many bullets in the chamber, and we had him in that stupid match at WrestleMania with Shane McMahon. Greatest Royal Rumble, he got showcased, fine, but it's a terrible show. 2 matches with Big Cass. Now he's teaming with Kane against Harper and Rowan. It's like, when are we going to use this guy? Now, are they feeling him out to say, like, okay, let's make sure it's pressure test him? I guess, but aren't we far enough now that we've had enough evidence he's okay?
Right.
Like, we should be using him like before he breaks down again. Instead, we're just gonna he's like a 5th or 6th from the top guy. And yes, Team Hell No's fun, but to me that's like a SmackDown special attraction. Like, hey, in 2 weeks on SmackDown, Team Hell No reunites for a big tag title match. Like,
Right.
not on this pay-per-view. Let's get him in there with some guy, him and Balor, right? Have a dream match or whatever, which we could use. So speaking of dream matches, this is another one that should have been, and that's Roman Reigns taking on Bobby Lashley. I was excited when this came up. I'm like, oh shit, like maybe this is a hidden gem like Cena and Lashley from Bash 07, 2 guys I really like throwing down. Unfortunately, it's about 2 years before they both figure it out and get awesome again. So I went 2.5 and ended up being pretty boring. Lashley beat him. Like, Reigns is hurting right now. Like, losing these matches, having 17-minute shit fest with Jinder Mahal. They've lost faith in him. He's not going anywhere fast. Like, we'll see if they can get it back on track at all, but he's in trouble right now. And Lashley, God bless him, I love him, but right now it's just not happening. So 2.5 for me. They went 15 minutes, and it was boring.
They're treating Roman like he's bulletproof, which is what they should do to more of their top faces to like get other people over. But Roman's not bulletproof at this point. He's a bulletproof talent, and I think that's why they constantly mess with his booking. Because as we see now, he's more than okay. He's persevered through it all. But you could have had some of what you have now then, and how much better would the product be? I went 2 3/4 just for general big men slapping meats. But yeah,
It's funny too, because like you think back and it's like, oh, if he would have turned heel sooner, it could have been so good. But then you sacrifice the initial bloodline stuff, and it's like, are you willing to give that up?
Yeah, I don't think I need Roman ever to be a heel during this whole run. I just need more gray to his character.
Yeah,
like unapologetic, straightforward, walking tall, no matter who's in front of him, whether it's Brian. I don't need to see him shake Brian's hand the next, like
right.
Whoever's in front of him, he's going to mow down, and that's the end of it. And then you can kind of change out who he's facing there, and let the crowd react accordingly. But yeah, this was a far cry from what I was hoping for. Are you up next with our next contest?
You are.
Or me? I am. All right, it's on me. We have for the Raw Women's title.
This card is so long. We've been doing this rundown for like 20 minutes.
Alexa Bliss beats Nia Jax.
1.75.
Not very good. Don't remember too much about this match.
1.75 as well. It's just like back to this feud. They don't have a ton of chemistry. Bliss is the DDT on the chair to win. Like we said, they're setting her up for Rousey, and that's about it. All right. Bury Me Softly gained Rusev a lot of cred because he got Money in the Bank, and then he gets a one-off pay-per-view title match against AJ Styles. Again, like Styles, man, what a year he's given, and these matches are so frustrating. It's like 4 shots to Nakamura, Rusev, then wait till the next contender. It's even crazier. It's like they're running these matches that we would have killed for like a year or so earlier and giving them all time. They're not rushing them. Like, this match gets 16 minutes. It's a good match. I went 3.5, but it's like, get over that hump and give us a classic.
Yeah, 3 1/4 for me. This felt like something out of JCP a little bit. I which is like a compliment. Like, I really like this. I think Styles is better suited for like Challenger of the Month, and maybe the rare rematch as opposed to 4-match series.
Yeah, he should have had like a run of guys like Nakamura, Bryan, Balor, Rusev, Joe, like just give us boom, boom, boom. Like, Jeff Hardy, like whatever. Like, there's a ton of dudes that could have been running out there month after month.
Yeah, give him the Bret Hart, most fighting champion push, and actually show it, because you have all these shows as opposed to Coliseum Home Video. Have him fight all these different dudes on the pay-per-views as opposed to Nakamura for 4 times. But That takes us to almost deleted that. Our main event. It is a 30-minute Iron Man match. It is for the Intercontinental Championship, as Dolph Ziggler is going to win the Intercontinental title by dethroning Seth Rollins. I went 3.5. I wouldn't say under-delivered.
Under-delivered.
I think they'd have a better match if it was an hour or even like 45 minutes. I know that's a weird
or just
point,
not an Iron Man. Just go at it.
or just go at it and have it. All right, we're getting to the hour mark or whatever.
Yeah, I went 3.25. We get the Dusty finish too, so it expires tied with Ziggler retaining, and then we get Angle restarting the match. Drew interferes, and Ziggler beats Rollins anyway. So it's like, all right, like why do we just do the draw? I actually would have, for once, I would have been happy with the draw. It's like Ziggler just wrestled a smart match and escapes with the belt. If he's going to retain anyway, just end with that. Like it's fine, whatever. It's still like a finish. I mean, he with the champ goes into an Iron Man up 1-0 is how you got to look at it, right? So if you're tied, you're down 1, and
yes,
he escapes,
champ
right?
does go up 1-0. That's
like
right.
that should be the strategy. So this is the Ziggler reheat. He's got Drew McIntyre in his corner, and this really dominates the back half of the year is the Drew and Ziggler, Max tag team here. And I liked it a lot. Like, they'll have some really good tag stuff, as we'll see coming up. I remember at the Boston House show, they had a great tag match with the Shield. Like, they were really cooking during this time. This is, I would say, one of the most successful Ziggler reheats that they do during this time period. After every year and a half or so, they would take another swing at it. And I think this one works pretty well. So, but again, I do say this match, I would say under-delivered expectations at 3.25.
They really do, because the next heat up's in 2020. Yeah.
It's like every year and a half. Clockwork.
Yeah.
So that's a total match grade of 2. So pretty low. I mean, our highest score was like we both had a 3.5 on a different match. Everything else outside of Nia and Bliss is 2.25 to like 2 3/4. Like that is just about replacement level pay-per-view in the ring. It's crazy. In 2018, if you read these matches down and were like, man, a card with Nakamura, Jeff Hardy, Finn Balor, Wyatt was over enough. He's a name. Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, Roman
Randy
Reigns,
Orton returns.
Lashley, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, Rusev, Rollins, and Ziggler is going to have that shitty of an in-ring night. And we don't have any of the women on this card, like Charlotte, Sasha, Becky. None of them are here. Bailey, like to help with the women's division. It's all, it's just Carmella, Asuka, Jackson Bliss. It's like just a weird show.
That is very weird.
All right, categories. Here's our build. We give a point for Ronda Rousey being. Oh, I didn't even mention Rousey being suspended. She shows up front row. She gets suspended on Raw. We give a point for Asuka still chasing Carmella and Ellsworth interfering on her behalf constantly. A point for Nakamura and Hardy sniping since before Money in the Bank when Nak had a low blow on him on TV. A point for Team Hell No reuniting to take down the Bludgeon Brothers is a cool moment. A point for Lashley stepping up to the battle of the big dogs. Reigns shits on him for doing MMA and leaving WWE. It's a super planche on TV. So the build was actually, I thought, better than the match.
That was dope, yeah. That was a really hot segment. I remember that.
Yeah. A point for Nia and Bliss's ongoing feud. It's been intense since Mania with the bully stuff. And a point for McIntyre arriving as Dolph's backup, and he helps him beat Seth for the IC belts to lead up to the show. So some pretty good builds for a show that ends up being kind of flat.
It feels like they're ramping up a little bit. Let's check out the minus section. We got Axel and Dallas's pay-per-view top contenders. A little weak. Maybe, again, something that should have happened on Raw. Presented as never winning matches. Show why they are here. We got positioning Brock as refusing to defend the world title and going to the UFC instead of being here. It makes WWE look really pathetic. Like, something is wrong when WWE looks like Brock Lesnar's local indie, which is what it is.
That's the whole story during this time period. He's champion. He's like, I'm not showing up. I'm flirting with UFC. I'm going to go back to MMA. I'm taking the belt with me. Screw yourself. Like, we're having all these pay-per-views with no world title match. With no Raw title. I mean, we get the SmackDown world title, but
I believe his contract was coming up too. So, yeah, well played by Mr. Lesnar. We got the never-ending Braun and Owens feud. And it's just absurd with like the porta potty segment getting tipped over and pushed off the stage, and then they try to sell it like Owens had this terrible fall and it's like a 2-foot fall off the stage, and it just makes Owens look awful. We've got Rusev winning random matches, winning a random match for a pay-per-view title shot. No real build there, just kind of.
I think it's just like a one-on-one. He's like, "Oh, the winner gets a title shot." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So that's a +3 for build. So again, solid. Not a good night for commentary though. We did give 1 point for the call of the B team winning, kind of compared it to other miracles and their long road back, which was cool. A point for Corey during the foreign announcer intros. He says one of the guys speaking in a foreign language says that Byron is too old to live with his parents, which is pretty funny. So there you go. The one funny line on the night for him.
He popped a silly. We've got for the minuses, Constable Corbin is the constable. Graves working both teams. It starts to make everything sound the same. I'm really over him on both the calls for Raw and SmackDown. We've got Cole and Graves just cutting off and ignoring Coach, much like the last show that we covered. Treating him like he's Art Donovan, our poor buddy Artie. Telling him to shut up randomly too.
Yeah, just like shut up, Coach, or just ignoring him completely when he talks. It's like they must have really hated him backstage.
Cole with his nonsense. But guys, Owens wins. Like we all get that Owen got tossed.
Did you get what happened?
Right.
Owens wins.
He just fell from 20 feet.
He's wins
through a table. Yeah. Losses on Raw and SmackDown constantly being referred to as embarrassing. This is a big one for me. And it's still going on to this day. Like anytime somebody loses, it's about being embarrassed. And that's just such an absurd angle, I think, to take about any loss in competition. Byron saying, what did we just see after Orton stomped Hardy, like dead setter the nuts? We just saw Jeff Hardy get stomped in the nuts. What do you think we saw? We got the needless Owen voice too on commentary for the Orton heel turn and the Owens cage bump. Both of those I thought were treated a bit absurdly.
All right, so it's a -5 on commentary. It's a bad night in the booth. Atmosphere, we get a point for the Deleter of Worlds entrance, which is pretty good. A point for the pop for the B team title win. The crowd was into it. A pop for Asuka's entrance. A point for Nakamura's entrance. A point for the crowd being red hot when Ronda comes in and cleans house. A point for Rusev Day. And a point for Graves comparing Rollins blowing a 3-0 lead very quickly to the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots, which I just had.
About it. Yeah. I'd love to give a point for the exit of the Deleter of Worlds as well. Happy to get them off the screen. For the minus section for atmosphere, we've got Constable Corbin, silence. The crowd is restless with all the Ellsworth stuff, messing with the flow of the match. The crowd kind of checked out for Team Hell No.
Yeah, they were not into that at all. And Brian's on his own out there. Like, you think they'd be rallying him, just makes him feel so lost.
Yeah. What else we got here? The crowd's still not fully with our top dog, the big dog himself, Roman Reigns. The crowd is sleepy for the slow Reigns Lashley match, excuse me. We get boring chants too. Counting down every minute for the Iron Man match gets old pretty fast and adds confusion.
Oh my god,
and they are consistent.
Every minute.
All right, they'll be done after 5 minutes. No, they keep
every
it going
minute.
The whole match.
They were doing like the Rumble, counting down and doing a buzzer. It must have been driving Rollins and Ziggler nuts. I should have factored that into the grade because I'm like, it was probably killing them hearing that because it's got to keep throwing off your timing. You're like, what the hell is going on? It kept, I hated that. It drove me nuts. Insane. All right, so that's a +1 for atmosphere. A big drop from Chicago to Pittsburgh. Notable moments, we give a point for the B team Battle Scars, a point for B team winning the tag titles, big night for them. A point for Nakamura winning the U.S. title, a point for Randy Orton returning and attacking Jeff Hardy, turning heel, a point for Braun throwing KO off the cage through the table, and a point for Lashley beating Roman Reigns clean, which is a pretty big resume win.
Our only minus is my man D-Bry. I feel just like another guy.
Yeah, we talked about that a bunch. That's a +5 for moments. Is that? I'd have to look. Is that this could be one of Reigns' last clean losses, right?
I think so. Probably up until we get to him losing to Corbin in 19.
Yeah, and then he's probably had like 1 or 2 since this ever. I would think, right? Can't be many. We'll see. I don't know the timeline that well, like I said. 2 for match grades. Card structure, we give a point for Jimmy Dream being locked in the shark cage. Kind of a cool old school stip for a little chicken shit duo like them. A point for the cage stip for Braun and KO made sense in the construct of the feud. A point for the Bludgeons beating down Hell No early in the show, sets up the through line for Kane being injured. A point for a fresh, good in-ring opponent for Styles, give him a strong pay-per-view title defense coming off the Nakamura feud. And a point for closing with the IC belt. Like, Rollins has elevated that title since Mania, made it feel like a big deal. Closing out a big pay-per-view with him as IC champion against Ziggler makes that feel like a big-time moment in match.
Yeah. For our minuses, we've got a waste of valor on Constable Corbin, recapping stuff we literally just saw less than an hour ago. There's so many matches, overstacked cards and long run times. We're fully in the bloat era, and it really affects the crowd. An awkward ending to the main event, and it's also the end of the show too.
So that's a 0 for card structure. Rewatchability, a point for Jimmy Jean stooging around in the cage with his tricks, and then Asuka just kicks the shit out of him after the match. A point for Nakamura waxing Jeff Hardy. That's fun to watch with the Kinshasa and the low blow. A point for Braun breaking the handcuffs and then throwing Owens through the table. A point for Reigns hitting a attitude adjustment Lashley over the top to the floor. It was a really nasty it's a hard fall. And then a point for Aiden English's pre-match poem for Rusev. He called it the Steel City Ashtray, which is pretty funny. We don't talk about him a lot, but it's kind of wrapped up in the Rusev Day atmosphere, but he's been great as the hype man. Like, I forgot how good he was with some of those pre-match bits that he did for Rusev. It wasn't just introducing him. He did like a little comedy act every time.
Yeah, a little ditty. Yeah, it was a good act. For our minuses, we've got my main man Lashley, obviously bending and waiting for Rollins to do a leg drop, coming back into the ring.
Oh my god, he waited for like 20 minutes.
Timing was real bad there. Reigns being late to kick out on a suplex, the timing again off with the count. And I think you talked about this, like Reigns is trying really hard to do the Kurt Angle last second miracle kick out.
Yep.
And they just don't have the timing down.
Yeah, he misses it bad. Like, he was definitely. It's a rough match for him. It's real sloppy for both those guys. They just were off the whole time.
Yeah. Long WWE Network ad before the main event. Like, at this point, we're 4 hours in. Just kind of get to it. We got a typical Iron Man flow, much like Survivor Series matches. Typical Iron Man flaw. Sorry.
Yeah.
Survivor Series matches, you get the suddenly transitioning to near falls as finishers minutes into a match. So, things that normally wouldn't put somebody away or suddenly.
Right. Like Survivor Series, a clothesline is an elimination. It happens in these Iron Man matches too. Suddenly we're 4 minutes into the match and it's like, come on. As I was watching this, I tried to put myself back in like 2018 Sunday night. I think they started at 8, right? I don't think they were. Were they 7?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe they were actually. I think it was pre-show 6:30, show 7, I think. But still, it was like, it's like 11:15, 4 hours in, work tomorrow, and you're getting a network ad going to the main event. It's like, come on, killing me. All right, so 1 for that. We had 0 all-time matches, of course, on either side. And that gives us a war score of George Costanza's favorite name, 7. Now, this made more sense to me when I saw this grade. I was like, okay, this is what I picture. This puts it right above King of the Ring 1994. And you're in rough company when you're behind Great American Bash 2004.
Oof.
Not a great show there. Behind The Undertaker versus the Dudleys. You're in trouble. So that puts it 77th all-time out of 96 shows. So
and there's not even anything fun bad on the show either. It's just collectively boring.
It was long and middling and boring. It's lucky I had those moments, because without that, it would have really been bad. It at least gave some moments.
Imagine a show without the B team. Like, how many points did they get the show?
2 in the moments, plus the title change. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the B team win the belts, this may be a negative rated show. Yeah. All right. So that'll do it for us, Marcus. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll continue our journey with 2 more pay-per-views from 2018-19 season. I guess real quick, you want to do our top 10?
Yep. Let me get to it.
Okay. It's unchanged since our last episode, obviously. Our 10th show is Backlash 2001, 29.25.
Our 9th show is Royal Rumble 2016 with a War of 32.
Our 8th show, WrestleMania 21 with 33.5.
SummerSlam 2015 with a 35.25.
Our 6th show, Royal Rumble 2005, 36.5.
Starting our top 5 is WrestleMania 18 with a 36.75.
SummerSlam 1999, 38.25 is tied for third with.
SummerSlam 1992.
Okay.
With
Our
a
second show all time,
38.25.
SummerSlam 2001 with a 39.
And our number 1 show, holding it strong, is Royal Rumble 2002 with a WAR of 44.
All right. We'll see what tops it. Marcus, like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Continue to check out everything here at North South Connection. We truly appreciate all of your subscriptions, all of your likes, your comments, your sharing around. Subscribe to us on YouTube and all podcast applications. We have tons of cool content. Spread the word for us. Spread it wide, spread it near, spread it far, spread it apart. For me and you, buddy. We're out. Talk to you in 2 weeks. Live your life above replacement level.